The long-awaited 2020 Olympics that got pushed back due to the global health situation is finally kicking off in a few days. Are you just as excited as we are to bear witness to this historic event? There are a lot of recorded victories and defeats in the world of sports that even decades long after they've passed are still talked about in groups and events. Those aren't the only things that are remembered by many. Some of the most controversial events are also embedded in people's minds, especially in the high-paced sports, soccer. How many of these controversial events are you aware of? How are you doing, guys? Welcome back to our channel. Today we'll be looking at some of the most controversial soccer moments on record. If you're curious to know what these events are, watch until the end to know more. Before we proceed with today's video, kindly do us a favor and click that like button and subscribe to our channel with the notification bell on so you won't miss any of our new releases. There are various controversies surrounding soccer throughout the years, and we've narrowed it down to some of the most popular and infamous events that took place within the field. Without further ado, here are some of the most controversial soccer moments recorded in history. Luis Suarez's biting spree. There's no denying the talent and appeal of Uruguay striker Luis Suarez, but there's a lot of negative connotations surrounding his name. Who could blame them? This mischief maker, who's already famous for his diving and stamping antics, drew more fame from biting his opponents. So far, there are 3 recorded incidents of Suarez biting his opponents, with the first happening in 2010 while playing at Ajax in Holland. For this, he was suspended for 7 games for biting PSV Eindhoven's Otman Bakhal on the shoulder. The second event took place 3 years later when the team played against Liverpool and he bit Chelsea's Branislav Ivanovic on the arm, and he got suspended for 10 games. The last of his biting spree, hopefully, happened during the 2014 World Cup. Uruguay was up against Italy when he bit Giorgio Chiellini on the shoulder and it left a visible mark. Diego Maradona's failed drug test in 1994. The use of prohibited drugs in sports is a grave offense, and even the greatest player in the history of the sport got caught up in it. Maradona carries the pride and hope of the whole Argentine nation on his back. That's why the 1994 World Cup was the venue for the country to shine the brightest. What they hoped for was different from what they got when the team and the soccer world were shocked to learn that Maradona had tested positive for a banned drug, ephedrine. Julio Grondona, the president of the Argentine Soccer Federation, told reporters after the team's early evening training session in Dallas that Maradona, the 33-year-old Argentine captain, had tested positive in a random drug test after Argentina's 2-1 victory over Nigeria. Grondona told reporters that Maradona's first sample was positive for ephedrine, a stimulant that helps clear the respiratory system in asthmatics, but one that could enhance a player's performance, even if used innocently to treat a bronchial or asthmatic condition. In just a blink of an eye, Argentina's tournament hopes were fundamentally crippled, with Maradona's final goal and indelible celebration versus Greece marking the end fabled international tendency for the troubled star. Thierry Henry's illegal handball. Known as one of the greatest strikers of all time and one of the greatest players in the history of the Premier League, Thierry Henry had his share of controversy in the sport, which also resulted in Ireland's hatred towards the former player. Henry was called to cheat for handing the ball to Irish defender Richard Doone. That resulted in the build-up to Gall's match-winning goal between France and Ireland at the 2010 World Cup. Because of this act, France booked a spot at the 2010 World Cup while cruelly crushing Ireland's hopes. The Battle of Santiago that took place at FIFA World Cup 1962. This next one happened decades ago, yet is still remembered and talked about by football fans all around the world. At the time, the tension between these two teams was an all-time high, was a ticking time bomb to begin with. Dubbed as the Battle of Santiago, this infamous battle started between 2 players in a match between Chile and Italy that took place on June 2, 1962. The level of violence that happened on the field had never been seen before, wherein 2 players were sent off and numerous punches were thrown and local authorities had to intervene 4 times. Because of this, the invention of red and yellow cards were introduced in the sport thanks to referee Ken Aston. Zidane's headbutt at the 2006 World Cup final. This next event is historic not just because of what happened, but because it's also one of the earliest viral videos that took the internet by storm. At the 2006 World Cup final, footage of French former football player Zinedine Zidane drew attention when he headbutted Italian defender Marco Materazzi. Spectators were shocked and everybody was already on edge since it was deadlocked at 1-1 in extra time. Years later, people asked what was Materazzi trash-talking about that enraged the French icon. Materazzi finally revealed this during an interview with Football Italia in May 2020. Zidane's headbutt? I wasn't expecting it at that moment, Materazzi explained. I was lucky enough that the whole episode took me by surprise because if I had expected something like that to happen and had been ready for it, I'm sure both of us would have ended up being sent off. There had been a bit of contact between us in the area. He'd scored France's goal in the first half, and our coach, Marcelo Lippi, told me to mark him. After that first brush between us, I apologized, but he reacted badly. Materazzi continued. The late tackles, altercations, and exchanges continued until 110 minutes when things reached a head. After the third clash, I frowned, and he retorted, "I'll give you my shirt later." I replied that I'd rather have his sister than his shirt. That's the story behind the French icon's last career as a midfielder. Lampard's ghost goal in the last 16 of the World Cup 2010. Continuing with the list, we have another controversial event when the English midfielder Frank Lampard scored a ghost goal in a match against Germany at the 2010 World Cup. What happened was that he hit the crossbar and clearly went over the line. The Uruguayan referee and linesman failed to see anything, and the game continued a minute after Matthew Upson scored a header to give a 2-1 scoreline. It changed the game for the better, Lampard would amiably say after goal line technology was approved by the International Football Association Board, IFAB, in 2012. Maradona's Hand of God. Of course, this list wouldn't be complete if we didn't include one of the most famous events that happened in the 1986 FIFA World Cup. The phrase Hand of God was first used by Argentine football player Diego Armando Maradona to describe a goal that he scored in Argentina versus England during the 1986 FIFA World Cup at the Azteca Stadium in Mexico City. Maradona jumped to head the ball but ended up hitting it with his hand and went past the goalkeeper, Peter Shilton, to give Argentina a lead of 1-0 during the match. The referees had overseen the handball moment, and there was no technology to reverse a decision back in those days. Andres Escobar's deadly own goal. Topping today's list of controversies is one surrounding Andres Escobar's deadly own goal at the 1994 FIFA World Cup. Nicknamed the Gentleman, he was known for his clean style of play and calmness on the pitch. Aside from that, Escobar worked hard to promote his country's positive image to earn acclaim in Colombia. However, the world was shocked when news spread like wildfire of Escobar, who was shot to death in the aftermath of the 1994 FIFA World Cup. This act of violence was reported as retaliation for having scored an own goal, which contributed to the team's elimination from the tournament. Because of his tragic death, it only highlighted the inherent and precarious connection between sport, criminal activity in a city, and a country that was spiraling even further out of control following the 1993 death of drug trafficker Pablo Escobar. And with that, we're concluding today's episode about some of the most controversial soccer moments on record. Hopefully you learned a lot and enjoyed watching it. Do check out our channel if you like this video, since we've got more content to cater to your needs. From tutorials to celebrity news to curious trivia. Thanks for watching today's video. Before you go, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel with the notification bell on so you won't miss any of our newest uploads. We'll see you again in the next video.